Hey everybody, welcome to another World of Warships replay, and here we have a match in the New Mexico on the Fault Line map. As with the previous games on 0.3.1, there is a ton of battleships on each team. In fact, the matchmakers spat out pretty much even teams, in terms of numbers and classes at least. 2 destroyers, 3 cruisers, and the rest in battleships for both teams. Straight away I begin to head to the west, while 2 of our battleships, a cruiser and a destroyer, seem to be setting themselves up to head to the east. First thing spotted is the enemy Cleveland, who's heading for the A point in the west. Looks like the enemy have already got at least 1 destroyer in there, since they're capping it already. And we can see the enemy battleships beginning to head west as well. They're still well outside my range. The New Mexico's range is, I believe, about 16 kilometers. It's fairly short. If you have played the Warspite but haven't played this yet, it's quite similar in terms of range. We now have 3 enemy battleships spotted heading west. We know there's at least 1 destroyer in the cap. There's another battleship, so that's 4 of them. That's more than half of their battleships, 1 cruiser, and at least 1 destroyer. And here we can see, in fact, the majority of their team is now crossing the open water heading west. And I'm still out of range. Our Sims in the middle of the map is doing all this spotting for us. The New Mexico lacks scout aircraft, and so it can't really keep eyes on the enemy team from this far away, particularly with islands in the way. Some of my teammates are already opening fire. The Japanese ships mostly have range, the American ships will not. At least for a few more moments. As we all close in and converge on the western cap, you can really see just how heavily the enemy are committing to the west here. So far only 1 battleship is seen heading east, everything else is coming this way. My first broadside of the game goes out at the enemy New York, and it does actually find its mark. I only get 1 hit, not a huge amount of damage, but I'll take it. But more important than that was the fact that I was able to accurately estimate the required lead. In fact, that was pretty much perfect. I couldn't have asked for better. And this is another reason why I'm not sold on complaining about the aim mod. If you know what you're doing, you don't need it. Very rarely do I need to try and find my lead on an enemy. I can just fire 1 salvo and at least have 1 or 2 hits out of it. Quite often I can land citadel shots. And this is at long range. At close range it's basically effortless to do. Take some incoming fire there. I've got out 6 hits myself. You could argue that wasn't really a good exchange of hit points there, but I'll take it. There's not much else I can do. It's not as if I can object to it. And I'm about to be in the cover of this island anyway. Looks like the enemy are beginning to shift their attention to the battleship behind me, which I will not complain about. And so as I close in on the western cap, it means I'm going to have a much easier time engaging some of these ships. Just need to try and avoid getting focus fired too heavily, and avoid getting torpedoed, and I should be okay. The New Mexico backing me up takes a few hits himself, and the enemy ships are piled up in a giant clusterfuck there. If there was actually an aircraft carrier on our team, that would probably be 3 or 4 dead ships right there. We're already down 2, 1 cruiser, 1 destroyer. But we have captured 2 of the 3 points, and the enemy can't really contest either of them convincingly. And so it looks like we're going to accrue some pretty decent points out of those two while fighting the enemy for the third. If we can keep them bottled up here in the west, it should prevent them from really being able to do much. The biggest problem for us is the loss of points through losing ships, which can allow the enemy to get the upper hand even though we hold the advantage in cap points. Cleveland rounds the headland there. Not the kind of damage I was hoping for. Unfortunately, it looks like most of my shells straddled him, and I only got 4 hits out of that, not very big ones. But he is quite low in health, and he is well and truly out in the open. And so I can afford to take my time a little here. Fire off another broadside. That one looks good. Just under 5k damage. Again, 4 hits. Good enough. It should at least scare him away. Looks like the Sims is in trouble, but one of the battleships is heading west from the sea point to assist him, Wyoming. And the Wyoming has a lot of guns, so it should be quite useful for helping fight that Cleveland, assuming my next broadside doesn't kill it. In fact, he gets wiped out by the other New Mexico, leaving me free to focus on the ships immediately to my front. These guys are at very close range, and oh wow. Good thing I figured that was coming, because otherwise those may have actually hit me. If you are actually looking at a destroyer zoomed in enough, you can see the splashes from the torpedoes hitting the water. In fact, if you're looking hard enough, you can see the torpedoes themselves fly out of the tubes. So even though you may not spot the torpedoes in the water because of the torpedo spotting mechanics, you will usually be able to tell when a destroyer is launched as torps. If you don't get any of the usual visual cues, and there goes another destroyer, then you can sort of guess usually when they've dropped torps, because they'll behave in a certain way. If a destroyer's, obviously trying to line up a run traveling in a relatively predictable way and then suddenly veers off and starts smoking, you can guarantee there's torpedoes in the water. With the destroyers dealt with, I begin shifting fire to the nearest target, the Pensacola. Now, probably should have gone for the Omaha here, since it has torpedoes and is therefore a bigger threat, but the Pensacola's guns do actually hurt quite badly for a cruiser, as you can see there. He's also focus firing me, but he is cleaned up by a teammate, in fact the same New Mexico that killed the enemy Cleveland. I get some light damage on the Omaha, just not very well-angled shots. And then, oh look, this New York's on the blue line. Let's see if we can do something about that. I've got to keep an eye on the Omaha to my right, in case he launches torps at me. I begin to turn to my left, partly to throw off his torpedo aim if he's about to fire them, and also partly to turn my front towards the Congo and close some distance with him. He's brawling our New York to death. He will probably kill the New York, but I should be able to handle the Congo, even with the incoming fire from the other enemy ships. Losing turrets a lot here. 2 shots into the Congo, but they both bounce. But I'm now well and truly in secondary range, and so that should help. Some good hits there, knock his health down substantially, and he's now on the blue line, so he's in a really bad spot here. He's also on fire quite badly, and so it's pretty much a sure thing that he's about to be sunk. Now, I could just leave him to burn to death, but I wanted to get him out of action as quickly as possible before he could get much more damage on me, and so I just fire off one of my turrets to finish him. Next target is the Omaha, who is very close, very dangerous with those torpedoes, and a very soft target if I can actually get some good Citadel hits. Fire off my guns, and that wasn't what I was looking for, but I'll take it. I should have aimed a little bit further back to try and hit behind his rear stacks, which almost always Citadel hits the Omaha. If you can hit at the base of or just behind that 4th stack, you will almost certainly fuck it up. Omahas are very, very fragile, and most of the 4 stack and even 3 stack cruisers in the lower tiers are very, very soft targets. The stacks also make for a great visual reference for aiming, I find, and so the less of them you have, the better off you tend to be. Now, I was going to eat a torpedo there. I couldn't really get out of its way because I didn't notice it until too late, but it didn't cause flooding and it didn't really do that much damage either, so I'm not too worried. I would like to kill him before I can get another one of those off, however. Unfortunately for me, he's already done it. I just managed to avoid getting hit there, and now shift my fire onto the New York. The Omaha's out of torps for a little while, and the New York, if he gets too close to me, can actually put some serious damage into my ship.